What is interesting, if we have to consider the ancient Roman law, it is that this type of specific type of Roman law, it was in relation with the idea of Roman Empire, in relation, in any case, with different type of cases of Rome. This is really interesting because at the beginning of the Roman history, we have to consider that there wasn't a specific type of law, but with time we have a specific type of law in relation with this type of jurisprudence of Rome, with different type of cases and different type of experiences of the jurists of the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. What is really interesting is that that type of law that the jurists of Rome considered, it was the idea of law in relation with the tradition of Rome. This is really important, and this is really interesting because this type of analysis, it was considered, for example, by Cicero. In fact, according to Cicero, the law is the sort of of the tradition that of Rome in relation with different type of cases and different type of tradition in relation with the idea of Rome. On the other hand, therefore, the cases are in relation with a different type of modality that we have to consider, then we have to discover according to the ancient Roman law. Therefore, it is important that we have to consider a specific type of difference between a law and a right, or in particular type a legislation and right. In fact, it is important to consider that there were the laws, but at the same time there were rights. On the other hand, on the one hand, the law it is, for example, the law of the emperor, but at the same time, the idea of right that, for example, it was supported by Cicero, it is in relation with we have to consider what happened to understand the right in relation with what happened. Therefore, the right is a sort of thing that we have to discover. It is important to consider that, therefore, the idea of right, it was also in relation with the idea of Romanization and inclusion that Rome developed during his centuries, in particular because we know in particular that the two armies, the two best armies that Rome developed and had, it were the soldiers, his army, and at the same time his law, much more than philosophy. In fact, the philosophy, it was only a sort of repetition of ancient Greek philosophy, but this is really interesting because it is a sort of inclusion. In fact, if we have to consider, for example, the army, we have to consider that this type of structure of army, on the one hand, they were citizens of Rome. On the other hand, the Rome and the Roman citizen understood how included the tacticals, the barbarians in their structures with Romanization with time. Therefore, with time, also the barbarians that they were conquered by Rome became Romans. And on the other hand, there is also the idea of law that is relation with this type of structure of army, maintain his cases and maintain his jurisdiction in relation with Rome. All is in connection with the Urbe Romana. This is really interesting because Rome, therefore, considered what other cultures had to offer, and at the same time decided to take everything from this culture and included what other cultures had to offer in relation with his law, or better, his right, his idea of jurisprudential law. This is really interesting because probably the main thing that Rome became to develop better than other, it was the idea of law, or better, what Rome created, it was the idea of law. Because in this sense, for example, the idea of philosophy, it was already developed by Greeks in this sense, and Rome included it in its history. On the other hand, the idea of a lot of ideas of in the battles, Rome decided to took from also other type of cultures, for example, the Hellenistic culture, for example, also the tactic to to conquer cities, for example, the ideas, some ideas arrived from the Hellenistic world. But on the other hand, also in the first type of the Roman Republic, there were some ideas that were relationship also with the ancient Greek city-state. It is important, therefore, that Rome, in any case, developed originally a specific type of structure of defense and attack in relation with a specific type of organization that connect in connection with other type of ideas of fight, and his type of ideas fight arrived to become the most important and best idea of fight into the ancient world. This is really important to understand because therefore Rome decided to fight in relation with his group, not with the single. This is another type of topic that we have to consider. And therefore also the law, it was a sort of a structure of the group in relation with Rome, in relation with circumstances that Rome decided to analyze. And this is interesting because the idea of law became to fall in relation with the codification of law. This is another type of topic that it is interesting also if you have to consider this connection of with soldiers. In fact, the idea of Romanization and the fallen of the idea of Romanization, but at the same time also the crisis of a different type of Rome that in the end arrived to build a specific type of codification of law. Therefore, what we have to consider in this sense is that if between the 4th century BC and the 4th century AD, the law it was really important and it was the law in relation with the tradition. At the same time, after the law became really much codified and not much lived by the Rome people, or in any case by the traditional of the Roman people. This is really important because therefore the jurist if the jurist during the period between the 3rd century BC and the 1st century AD continued to analyze the law in relation with cases, etc., with the tradition, from the 3rd century AD, this type of analysis fell, and at the same time, the codification of law fell. And in this sense, in fact, with the end of the Roman Empire, we have, for example, with in the last centuries of the Roman Empire, we don't have, on the one hand, the idea of law in relation with his tradition, but only a codification of law, or better, the imposition of the laws of the emperor. And at the same time, we have a structure of soldiers that follow the idea of the military thing, with a specific type of group that follow a specific type of idea, the idea of emperor, or the idea of a specific type of man that he guided the group. He decided what the group was, and at the same time, this connection with different type of provinces fell in relation with the idea of emperor. This is in relation also with the idea of bureaucracy. This is really interesting because in the end we know that, for example, on the one hand, the fallen of the Romanization, but at the same time the fallen of the crisis of bureaucracy, the idea that the law of the Roman Empire were fallen, arrived to build a specific type of new type of structure in relation with the idea of codification of law. This is really interesting because then Roman Empire arrived to become an emperor that codified the law. And in fact, Justinian, the emperor of the East Roman Empire, arrived to build the Corpus Juris Civilis, with a lot of jurists that wrote a lot of laws and that selected, tried to think about some laws that were maintained, and connect with a specific type of connection with these laws. These jurists choose by Justinian, tried to save the law, but they could not, because the law, it was already lost. In fact, the idea of tradition, it was lost in relation with the finished of the tradition, the end of the tradition. In fact, the tradition, the idea of oh, we have to find the law and not create it, this type of idea, it was fell from the end of the Roman Empire. In fact, Justinian cannot save the tradition because there is no more the tradition. Only type of tradition are some rules that already exist, but these rules have lost their tradition idea. I can read, for example, what law is, but I cannot understand totally what is the basement of the law. This is the main idea of the end of the Roman Empire and why the Roman Empire, in the end, in the 5th century BC, fell. But we know that also the tradition of law of the Roman Empire could not be reinterpreted totally, only saved by Corpus Juris Civilis. Bye.